legislation in the Zimbabwean government. And government realized that yes, the concern from investors are valid. So that legislation has been repealed, as I say. And you, as in foreign investors, you can now own 100% in all the minerals, except for just two now, which are diamonds and platinum. But even for those two, government is working on repealing again for those two. So very soon, for the two, we could go to 100% for foreign investors. Other areas where investors were concerned was two legislations on IPA and COSA. IPA is access to information. We say those two have already been repealed by government. So the issue of human rights in Zimbabwe is no longer an issue, is it? There are also other areas that government has opened up. So like I said, this is the time for investors to come into Zimbabwe.
Thank you. Maybe, Your Excellency, you can expand as well on the economic and political reform which has swept through the country since obviously the change of government from the previous era under President Mugabe to the new era, the new dispensation with President Emerson Mnangagwa taking on a new direction.
Thank you very much. I think the starting point has to be the commitment that His Excellency President E.D. Mnangagwa demonstrated right from the inauguration day. Commitment to broaden and deepen the political space, commitment to carry out deep economic, political, legislative reforms. And of course, these legislative reforms had also to do with the aligning of the various pieces of legislation to the 2013 Constitution, which is the Constitution of the nation. So that has meant, that has led to the creation of various delivery platforms and mechanisms. For the legislative arrangements, we have an interministerial committee that was put in place to make sure that the alignment of the pieces of legislation and the reforms agreed to at policy level actually were speeded up. We have seen the processing of various electoral reforms as well, both before the elections and after the elections. We had various observer missions. We had the Commonwealth observer mission. We had the EU observer mission, SADC, AU, and various other observer groups who made recommendations, and all these have been taken up on board, and they have either been processed already or are actually work in progress. So I think there has been a demonstration on the political front and the legislative front to carry through these reforms. And as you know, His Excellency the President has also extended an invitation to all the presidential candidates who went into the elections and the political parties who went into the elections to come forward into a national dialogue process, so that on the basis of a consultative process, various stakeholders could contribute and participate in this very deep process. But I think the most exciting developments have been in the economic arena, the economic reforms that have been taking place. We had a situation where the economy was really weighed down by budget deficit, expenditure overruns. This is now a thing of the past. We no longer have a budget deficit to talk about. We actually, for the first time, have been talking of a budget surplus since the end of last year. And what that did was also to rein in, the inflationary spirals that were now coming through the economy. But there were also reforms related to the state enterprise sector, the huge parastatals, which really should contribute a huge chunk to the GDP, but which have not been doing that. And these are now going through either privatization or restructuring or JVs or various other PPPs to allow the private sector to come to the fore and create growth in the economy. We have also seen the Minister of Finance, what the President did was to bring into place somebody who was not a politician at all. This was an investment banker and an academic who was lecturing both, I think it was Oxford or Cambridge.
Oxford University.
Yes, and LSE, but who has been an investment banker in the economy, who was very, very clear on what needed to be done. And the PEMSEC that I was referring to was also the CEO of Barclays Bank in the country. This is a banker coming in to look at the issues that, and perhaps that may really explain, with the support of cabinet, how the Minister of Finance, the Reserve Bank, the Central Bank have been able to carry out these major economic reforms that are starting to give a lot of confidence to investors, to demonstrate that Zimbabwe is indeed a safe destination, and that they can do business and be assured that their investments will be indeed safe.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Just before I open to the floor, maybe we can have a word from Martin. How is the city of London, how is it responded to all the positive changes that are taking place in Zimbabwe?
I think, as His Excellency has said, it always starts with putting the right people in the right, square pegs, square holes. We'll start with that, and I think the city recognizes that. Now, that's been quite positive. The practicality of this is how does that then impact on actual investments coming from the city? The city always looks at things from an institutional perspective. It always looks at risk. And from what we see in the transactions that we're doing, is that from an export insurance and from a credit mitigation perspective, we're seeing numbers. Before there were no figures for Zimbabwe, and if there are no figures for Zimbabwe, we can't invest. Now there are numbers, so at least we know the risk. At least we can figure out what our yield or our margin will be on the deal, which essentially is, from an insurance perspective, from a coverage perspective, we have a benchmark. So I think that's what we're seeing now, and on our way put up.
Thank you. Encouraging to note that there's a bit of some takeoff. We'll have another short presentation from Mr. Julian before we have the president.